Welcome to Follow the Action. I am John Layfield. I am one of your hosts. We are the fastest growing show on the freaking planet because our guys have been actually killing it last week. Wait till you tell you what Gotham City did. Our guys owned the Sweet 16. Today, they're going to tell you all about the Final Four. Downloaded in over 2,000 cities, over 60 countries, all 50 United States. It's Follow the Action. You can get us on YouTube, also on Apple or Spotify, wherever you download your podcast, because we got the best crew in the world. And we start with the man, the legend himself, the Philly Godfather, Mr. Steve Maltepis, and our favorite legend with his glass of wine. He's got with him. I was just in the Dallas airport shopping for some Dallas Cowboy merch for him that he will never wear. He might burn it, but he's not going to wear it. He's the Philly Rooster. And our man we're going to brag about in just a minute, Mr. Gotham City, called the future of sports betting, Mr. Matt Maltepis, representing the college kids, and not always here, it's special when he is, the 8-Ball, joining us today. So, Philly Godfather, you ready for the Final Four?
Man, it's the best time of the year, Final Four. You got a bunch of great teams in there. UCLA snuck in there somehow, but it's going to be awesome.
I can't wait to talk about my hometown team, Gonzaga, with Philly Rooster. But first, we got to go to Gotham City. Gotham City, you killed it last week. You called the round. You're like Muhammad Ali. You called the round and how it was going to happen. The knockout, Ngannou. What, a plus 500? Some guys got it plus 600, plus 650. Talk to us. Brag a little bit. Spike the football.
Yeah, last week was good for the UFC. It was a perfect time, perfect matchup. You know, kind of all the metrics kind of lined up there. The price lined up for us, and just everything that we had studied and talked about, came true. And that second round knockout from Francis was just a masterpiece. I mean, the team that he trained with was the whole key there with Eric Nixick and Extreme Couture. They had him staying long. They had him using leg kicks. They had him throwing body punches. He had that great defensive wrestling set where he stopped from being taken down. He had never shown that ability in his prior fights, but he switched camps. And for the last couple, months to last couple years, he's really, really improved. And you saw that last Saturday night. And that's why he is the heavyweight champ of the world.
Was that the big difference between that and the first fight he had with Stipe?
I think the first fight, he thought that he was just going to knock him out and didn't have to worry about anything, that he was just going to run through him, hit him with a punch, and that fight was going to end. You saw him being just a technical masterpiece, in this fight. I mean, when I saw him stay at range in the first few minutes, I saw him throw a couple leg kicks, look for the body punches. I knew that they had him tuned in to really win that fight, and when he did.
Joining us every single week is our good friend, Mr. Dave Mason, who's not on camera because apparently he's so good looking, he'd blow the whole internet up. He would kill the internet. He's from Bet Online, one of the best sports books in the world. Dave, what have you got for Francis Ngannou next? I know there's odds about who he's going to fight next. It's odds with Jon Jones. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, what's he going to do next? The big rumor is Jon Jones, but Jon Jones is squabbling with Dana about money, and Dana's firing back that he should move back all the way down to 185 after seeing what Francis did Saturday night. So we put up odds on who Ngannou is going to fight next. Jon Jones is the favorite, minus 175. Derrick Lewis took a lot of bets. We opened up plus 300. He's now 200. Miocic, the former champ, probably the best heavyweight champ in UFC history. That belt always changes every other fight, it seems like, but he held on to it the longest. So he's at 4-1. Then a couple long shots, Volkov at 9-1, and Cyril Gane at 14-1. So it looks like Jones is, that's the big money fight. That's the one everybody wants to see. So we'll see a lot of dynamics there. See what Jones wants to do, but if he wants it, it'll be his.
Gotham City, we're going to talk to you about Jones in just a second, but also get your feelings on a Stipe, the trilogy, the final fight, which Stipe should have at least a say in getting that third fight. Does a third fight change the outcome of what happens second fight?
Well, just 1 second real quick. We've been trying to get Halle Berry on the show. And I've heard that Dave Mason is so good looking. I tried to entice him with the Fabio picture, if you remember, a couple weeks ago, right?
Yes, yes.
So I'm really hoping that maybe we can really consider showing like a profile image of Dave Mason, and maybe that would entice Halle Berry to join our podcast for a week.
Listen, get a briefcase with about $2 million on it and make it the profile picture, Dave Mason.
Hey, if that's all it is, Rooster can just write us a check. That's easy. That's
Let me rewind. Let me rewind for 1 second. I've seen Dave Mason, and let's not do that.
Yeah. So, the interesting part is what's going to happen next. Dana White does not like when fighters go public speaking about money, right? It's the number one thing. All of his fighters seem to be underpaid. They don't really review or release the pay-per-view buys and the numbers on it. The win and the show bonus always seem very low. You can see Conor McGregor's made a bunch of money, but it kind of looks and has the feel like a lot of the other fighters who are still really elite fighters haven't made nearly that kind of money, as before. And you saw him start throwing out figures and numbers saying, show me the money and this. And you got a guy like Derrick Lewis, and Derrick Lewis would walk in there and fight him for nothing because Derrick Lewis likes to fight. Now, the interesting part is both Derrick Lewis and Jon Jones share the same representation. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Dana White puts Derrick Lewis first or if he puts Jon Jones first. I don't think you're going to see him give Stipe an immediate rematch, even though it is 1-1. I think at 38 years old, by the time Stipe recovers, gets back in shape, comes back and fights, what is he going to be? 39 and a half, maybe even close to 40. I think he's going to get another fight somewhere else. And I don't think you're going to see him get that fight again, unfortunately.
So who wins the Ngannou Jones?
Well, multiple factors. So I'm going to give you the scenario that I think is going to happen. I think they're going to put it in a big venue. I think they're going to put it in a huge ring. And I think Jon Jones is going to run around him for 3 rounds. He's going to tire him out, wear him out. And then I think he's going to put the pressure on Ngannou the last 2 rounds, and he may even finish him later in the fight. I think it's Jon Jones' fight all day. I think it's experience. I think it's multiple striking points. I think Jon has the experience edge. In a smaller ring, I think it's a different fight. I think it's a really, really close fight. But in these big rings where Jon's going to have momentum and position to change, you're getting him at I think Bet Online has him listed at plus $1.60 right now.
Yep.
That is a home run right now if that happens in a big cage.
And before we go to baseball and to our Final Four special, what about Derrick Lewis against champion?
I think that this time Francis would probably win that fight there a little bit. They fought before and it went to a decision and it wasn't a really exciting fight and stuff like that. I think Derrick Lewis even got the decision, if I'm remembering correctly. I didn't go all the way back, but I think Derrick Lewis won that decision. And it was a really underassuming, underwhelming fight. Very few punches thrown, not much action. And I think they were kind of afraid of each other, with the power that each one of them had. I think this time it's a little different fight, and I think that Francis would probably win that battle this time.
Dave, is that what you have as well with Derrick Lewis? Do you have that called up on your screen?
We don't have the odds up yet. We put Francis Ngannou and Jon Jones up. Francis is minus 185, but yeah, I mean Ngannou would be the easy favorite over Derrick Lewis. I'd say 350 or so, 300, right at the top of my head. So most likely going to be Jones, but if not, we'll be ready for Derrick Lewis. Yeah, it was funny because I was looking so forward to that fight, Ngannou versus the big black beast, man. It must have been the biggest letdown of a fight ever. It was probably one of the most boring fights of all time. So hopefully they do get in the octagon the next time. They'll let it rip.
Yeah, and I think that when this was for the heavyweight title, I think you're going to have a whole different fighting experience here. And you're going to see Ngannou with much better training. I think he's going to come after him quite a bit because everybody loves Lewis. They love the one punch knockout power that he has, the late comebacks that he's had. But, the fact of the matter is Francis is just an elite athlete, way better movement now, multiple tools in his bag. And I think that he gets Derrick Lewis in that fight.
Let me ask you one thing, if I can, just about going back to Jones. Jones is the GOAT in my opinion. He's the best of all time. But if he had one weakness, to me, it's he does not have one punch knockout power.
He does not.
He did not have it at 205 when he was the biggest guy in the ring. He kicked a couple guys and knocked them out, but he's the GOAT. But if he had one weakness, it's not one punch knockout power. And all those dudes have it at 206 to 265, especially Ngannou. So that's my concern with him at heavyweight. And he is slowing down more. I mean, at 205, he wasn't as athletic as he used to be. I mean, he was winning, but I followed him since his first fight in the UFC. Again, I'm a junkie in UFC. I don't think I've ever missed a damn card. But you used to see early in his career, every fight, he would do that spinning elbow. Yep. When's the last time you saw him do that? And that's like an athletic move, right? He just doesn't do it. He just plods too much. And again, he's the GOAT, and he's still right up there. And I think you might be right, but that's my concern with him is Ngannou can knock him out with one punch, like most heavyweights, but it's not. The roles aren't reversed there. And B, I mean, he's not as athletic as he used to be, in my opinion, by my eyes.
I agree 100%. I just think that he wears him out by just staying good movement on the outside. I think the first couple rounds are really underassuming. I think they're really close, but when you get that big ring, I think you're just going to see that after a round and a half to 2 rounds, I think Francis is going to wear down a little bit. I really do, because Jon Jones's movement is way better than what Stipe showed the other night. I mean, Stipe standing in front of him in that small octagon is literally just asking for it. You know what I mean? I mean, the first time they fought, it was different. I mean, Stipe had such better movement, but you stand and plod and you're slow in front of him, you're in trouble. And Jon Jones will not do that in that fight.
Hey,
Jon respects his power.
No one uses. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have the odds on us? You getting us Halle Berry?
What's that? How old is she?
Oh, is she 50? Is she 50?
I live in Central. I live in Central America, guys. Come on, man. Gotta get out of here.
Just checking to see. I think
Halle filmed down there.
He just buried Halle Berry.
No, she's awesome. She's awesome. But I mean, I can walk to the supermarket and there's a girl just as hot, and that's not an exaggeration at all. And half the age. I mean, come on. You guys. Once this COVID's over, you guys got to get down here.
This kind of talk will never get us Halle Berry. I'm telling you.
She's incredible. I wish literally, but no, she might be the GOAT, man. I mean, she's incredible. Hot. But I mean, come on, man. I mean, come on.
I got it.
She's in the Hall of Fame, but she's Halle Berry. But if I saw her walking down the street in the town I live down here, I'd be like, oh, she's attractive. If I saw her walking down the street in Philly, it'd be like, oh my God, look at her.
Oh my God.
It's like,
we just lost our friends.
I got to jump in, guys. I got to jump in. I spent many a night at the Del Rey where Dave's talking about, and yes, it's special down there.
I know
nothing. We lost any chance for Halle Berry, and we lost all our fans in Philadelphia just now.
Hey, I'm from Philadelphia too. It's just come on, man. I mean, there's levels to this, as a good friend used to say.
All right, we're killing all our chances here, but we got tomorrow. Is depending on when you're listening to this, the first day, opening day of Major League Baseball. We're going to go to a baseball specialist, Mr. 8-Ball. I understand, because I love this team down in San Diego with Tatis and Machado on that left side of the infield. Man, that thing is loaded. You got something for us with the San Diego Padres. Is that right, 8-Ball?
Yeah, I'm going with the Padres plus 900 to win the World Series. We know they arguably have the best bats in baseball, but what they addressed this offseason was their pitching. They added Yu Darvish, who was arguably a top 5 pitcher last year, and Blake Snell, and we saw the success he had against the Dodgers in the playoffs. You add in these two aces to a lineup that already features Lamet. He had a career year last year, and Paddock, who's really special. And if he takes that next step, you're looking at either one or two, the top 2 rotation in baseball right now in terms of pitching. Now, you also have the Padres, they know this team very well. They play them a couple times a year, and they're not scared of anybody. So I think at plus 900, you're getting a lot of value on this team. And I think, at the end of the year, they're going to be the best team in baseball.
I was reading today about some of the MVP, odds and different things around. Tatis and Machado, both sides of that infield are up in running for the MVP. Do you like Tatis or Machado, either one, to be MVP by the time of the end of the season?
Yeah, I definitely love Tatis. I don't think you can go wrong with him. He's getting better every year. Defense, offense, stealing bases, home runs. I think he's the move if you're going to take one of those two.
The other thing I saw was in the New York Post, they had the writers pick, the top 1 through 5. So you had the Mets and Braves were kind of interchangeable. But the one thing that everybody agreed on was the Texas Rangers finished dead last. Every writer agreed with that. Do we really suck that bad? Are we that bad?
It's that bad, John.
We lost Lance Lynn. I get it. It's really that bad. Man, talk to me.
It's that bad.
What are the odds? Who's going to be worse, the Houston Rockets or the Texas Rangers, Dave?
Rockets lost like 20-something straight. Woo. Insane.
That's a good one. Let's look into a prop like that.
All right. Nobody has faith in the Texas Rangers, so that's fine.
Well,
Hey, we're
they
bringing
got that
Nolan Ryan
stadium
back.
going for them. I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, since the Rangers are obviously in last place, we found out who's the first place with San Diego Padres. Let's go to the special that we have, and that is the Final Four. Dave Mason for Bet Online. We've got the Final Four coming up. What are your odds as far as the teams going in that you see at Bet Online?
Yeah, early action's great, and it's the public's on the chalk. No surprise. 65% of the cash is on Baylor. Currently 5-point favorites versus Houston. Over-unders 134.5, and the action there is 50-50. No big decision as of yet. Gonzaga and UCLA, Zags are 14-point favorites. 68% of the cash is on the Zags. Total of 145. And again, the action's pretty choppy, 50-50. So make no big decision there. But 90% of the action's yet to come in. As far as the odds to cut down the Nets, Zags -200 favorite, Baylor +260, Houston +700, and UCLA 25-1.
So, Rooster, my hometown team, Gonzaga, help out your geographically handicapped friend here. And I understand you got something on the Zags. What is it?
Well, first off, so far this week, I went under in the first half in the Baylor game. I didn't mention that to you. They're not going to get the number. I went under 64. Never cheat on the number in a first half or a second half bet. The points are too valuable. But what I noticed here is something interesting. If you look at the Gonzaga, they're around 1250 money line favorite in this game. And then you got to guess a little bit, but I know one of our friends on the show loves Houston to win against Baylor. And if that happens, Gonzaga is going to be another big favorite. It could be close to double digits, probably around 8 or 9. And even if Baylor wins, they're going to be at least a 5-point favorite. So if you lay 200 on the Zags, you're getting a mathematical advantage at a -1250 money line and a -250 money line. So I laid 190 today. If this line creeps up to 1,300, which I think it may, and I have a feeling that the Baylor money line is going to creep up a little bit, I'm going to lay 200. I think -200 is a good bet. If that's all I had available, I would lay 200 on the Zags to win it all.
And Matt, I understand you got something for the first Zags game coming up as well. What is that?
Yeah, the UCLA under, Gonzaga under. We went under 146.5. UCLA is going to come in as the fourth slowest pace team the Zags have played all year. And when you look at the tournament, I think they're actually the slowest team the Zags have played all year in the tournament. In terms of possessions per game, they ranked the lowest out of all the teams the Zags have versed the tournament at 292. Offensive possession length, they also ranked the lowest out of all the teams that they played in the tournament, and they ranked 319 there. Now, the big thing is Johnny, I think this you say Ju Zhang, he's caught fire in the tournament. He's been going off. He's averaging, I think, 22 points a game in the tournament compared to his normal of 15 points per game. On top of that, his percentages have skyrocketed. They've gone up to 48% in the tournament. Meanwhile, in the regular season, he was 43%. He scored more than half of UCLA's points last game against Michigan. He scored 28 points. They only scored 51 points the whole game. Now he has to do that on a hurt ankle. He hurt his ankle last game, sprained ankle, and now he has to do that against the best team maybe he'll ever play in his college career. And it's the biggest game of his career. So if he has a hurt ankle, it's going to be swollen. I know Batman can talk about that a little bit as well, but it's going to affect him. I've dealt with those ankle injuries. Many players have dealt with those ankle injuries. Sometimes they hurt more than a break. So it's going to be tough for him to create shots, create offense for this UCLA team, and especially him being such a big, vital piece for this UCLA offense. They're going to suffer on the offensive end. I think they're going to struggle to put up points. And combine that with the fact these teams are heavily dependent on the two-point distribution, I love the under here.
Abilene Christian Wildcats actually held UCLA to fewer points than Michigan did. So I think we actually need like a consolation match.
You get a banner for that, I think. In the
Hey, in Abilene, we'll take it. We'll take anything.
Hey, John, listen, if the Zags win, I am coming down for the parade and I can't get a hotel room. You mind if I stay with you for a couple nights?
Absolutely.
John, whatever you do, don't let him stay over the house. Rooster sleepwalks. He's been doing it for years. Do not let him in your house and sleep over.
Well, Philly Godfather, I understand you have something on UCLA as well. What is it on UCLA?
Yeah, I'm going to be on an island here, John. But as we've witnessed before during the year, it's not a bad place to be when you're looking to place a wager. I mean, you can catch a tan, you can go running on the beach, you can relax, drink some margaritas, and get paid on this money island that we've been killing it all year long now. A ton of people think UCLA has no business making it this far in the tournament. And to be honest, it kind of shocked me as well. I mean, they beat BYU. They beat Michigan State. They beat Michigan and Alabama that nobody expected. But I'm actually starting to see it a little bit. I'm starting to get why they've been beating these teams. And, I mean, the Zags are unbelievable. 4 or 5 weeks ago on this show, I told you guys, if you can, go bet them at plus 300. I don't care how square it sounded at the time. Now they're minus 200 to win it all. So that was a good bet. So if you went out there and you nibble a little bit on the Zags, you're in a great position. But when it comes to this game here, I think the books inflated this line a little bit, this opening line, at least 3 points. You really can't blame them. I mean, they're definitely going to end up top heavy on the Zags here with a bunch of money, especially the way Gonzaga blew out USC. They kind of made it look too easy. The whole world, like I said, they're going to be on the Zags here, which I think is a perfect opportunity to sit back, wait to see where this line matures at. And if you can grab plus 15 or better, I think it's going to end up 15. It might go as high as 16. I'm going to be on UCLA here. And this is the reason why 4 of the 5 Bruins guards who happen to be their leading scorers are 6'6" or taller, which I think can create a huge opportunity to cash a ticket here. Now, I know USC beat the Bruins twice this year, even though the last game they beat them by a point. But both USC point guards, they're tiny. I think the one guy, Edie's like 6'1", and the other kid that looks like a football player, Anderson, I think he's probably like 6 foot tops. The other 2 guards for USC, they're both around 6'7", Peterson and White, but they're spot-up shooters, and they can't really create a shot off the dribble. They become a lot less efficient when they got to create that shot off the dribble. So it was the style, it was the size of USC. Even though USC was ranked a little higher in the effective height ratio, Mobley 7 foot 210. I mean, you had some guys that were thin. They didn't have the girth on them, even though they had the height. And we saw Gonzaga take advantage of them down low. Both UCLA's big guys, they're 6'9", 245, 6'9", 230. They're a lot bigger, a lot stronger down low. So I think that's going to help UCLA a lot here. UCLA runs at a real slow pace. You got that. You got Jones, he's playing lights out, and you got the bigger guards. The whole world's going to be on the Zags here. I think plus 15 or better, you can probably cash a ticket on UCLA here. Even though the Zags are going to definitely win the game, they're going to end up in the final. Whether they're playing Houston or Baylor, that's a toss-up. But I think UCLA at plus 15 or better, cash a ticket.
John, I think Philly's missing the most important point. Mick Cronin has his father with him in this tournament. Okay. And I know that you're never supposed to go to the window and, the Sister Jean mentality and all that stuff. These guys are playing for his father, period. And when you show up and you have something to play for, it is unlike anything else in sports. I agree with him, and I think they give the Zags a fabulous game this week.
Yeah, you got to remember, if the game's hovering around the number, I mean, I fully expect the Zags to take their foot off the pedal a little bit at the end because the national championship game is up next for them. So I think it's a great opportunity. Plus 15 or better on UCLA. I think that's where you're going to make some money this week.
I'm with you, Philly, but here's the problem. I pretty much bet against them every game this tournament, and they're a covering machine. I never seen anything like.
They are, but
to bet them.
I was going through everyone they played, but no one has the guards that are as big as UCLA's, and I think that's made the big difference in the tournament. Everyone's 6'6" or bigger. Creighton didn't have that. USC didn't have that. Two small point guard, 6'1". And the size of Gonzaga's got a bunch of, guys that are real strong, where UCLA's got some big guys down low that are, 245, 230, where the other guys didn't have guys that big down low.
I'm with you. And I made great arguments for every dog against them so far. And they just keep coming. I never seen anything like it. They may be one of the best teams ever. They're a covering machine. They play well. They play disciplined. As soon as you start to get a run against them, they take a timeout and it stops. It's like they're a different team when they come out of a timeout. I'm with you. I love the Dogs, but I think I'm going to stay away from it.
Dave, when's the last time in the Final Four that a team has laid this big of a number? It's been a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, what was it? We were looking at it last night. Final Four.
Is it Kentucky?
This is the biggest ever, I think. This is the biggest spread ever, I believe, for the Final Four. Yeah.
The next one was 12.
Yeah. No, this is the biggest ever.
Right. This is one of the best teams maybe we've seen.
I mean, if you remember those UNLV teams, the Anthony Davis teams, all those teams had that one big player. This is more of like a cohesive unit. You don't have that one guy that can completely take over the game, but everyone on the floor can score for Gonzaga. But I think that guard player UCLA can keep them within the 15 points.
So my dad sent me a video of the old school Boston Celtics in Red Auerbach coaching. And I didn't get to see a whole lot of that, unfortunately, but he sent me all these videos. And the message was, who is this? And I called him and I said, this is Gonzaga playing. And he goes, absolutely. He said, Ryan, the only time I've ever seen the ball movement doing this stuff is in teams like this, in their motion, in their picks, in their high-low movement, in everything that they have. I mean, it is really hard to defend. You can't play zone because they shoot so well. And you have to be big on defense to do that. And, I think that's where you're in the right metric there.
Well, then before we go to the other side of the bracket, where would you rank them, say Rooster, since you've been the college basketball aficionado for such a long time, where would you rank them, assuming that they win the tournament, or at least right now before, some upset happens, where would you rank Gonzaga in the best of all time?
Well, it's, as you know, when you look at different eras, it's so different. I mean, this team would smoke those old North Carolina teams. I don't care what anybody says. These guys are bigger, they're more athletic, they're faster. But leaving each team in their own era and where did they stand in that era against the competition, I would say they're top 5, lower tier of that 5, as long as they win out, which I think they're going to do, obviously. Maybe 4th or 5th. I mean, it's very hard with some of those North Carolina teams. I mean, and even Duke. I mean, Duke was an 11-point favorite against Michigan State in '99. North Carolina was a 10-point favorite against Syracuse in 2016. Kentucky was 9 over Stanford in '98. You got to put them top 5. I mean, how could you not? If they win out, I'm going to put them 3 or 4. That's where I'm at.
I mean, it's so hard comparing because a lot of those teams had a bunch of NBA players on them, like the Michigan team, the UNLV teams, North Carolina teams, the Kansas team. I mean, because these guys, I don't know if any of these guys are going to be superstar NBA players, but as a team, I agree with Rooster, top 5, top 10, definitely.
This reminds me of the years before we had all this one and done, where you had cohesive teams playing for a couple years, having the knowledge of each other, the ball movement. And you don't see that anymore. It's all, spread. It's all one and done, dribble drive. There's none of this. I mean, watching Gonzaga play is an art this year. And Mark Few has done an amazing job at their spacing and getting these guys involved in the right way.
Yeah, the only other team that played that type of basketball, but they didn't have the talent, was Loyola Chicago. Porter Moser did a great job, but he didn't have the horses that this Gonzaga team has. Mark Few. I mean, they got some real solid players, and everyone on that court can shoot. Everyone rebounds. Their basketball IQ is through the roof. They just play the best form of basketball you can watch.
Gotham, I understand you have something on the other side of the bracket.
Yeah, you want to talk about being on an island? I'm about to be on a serious island right here.
Gilligan, you're Gilligan. You need the skipper with you. Or at least
last week was good for us. We had USC -1, -1.5, the money line, Francis Ngannou, round TKO. That's why Carmine Falcone is back this week, my friend. And, the request was, hey, you got to put the same thing on and give us the same result, right? So, the first thing that jumped out to me when I looked at these two games was the line jumped out to me at Houston. And when I started digging into the metrics here, the adjusted efficiency on offense and defense, both of these teams are in the top 10. And I was surprised to see Houston that high rated on offense. It's just not something that jumped out to me with how they play. The effective field goal percentage on defense, this is what really jumped out to me. Houston is number 1 in the country in that half court defense. Baylor is like 125th. There is a huge discrepancy here. Okay. 3-point defense, Houston, number 10 in the country. And, Baylor is such a great 3-point shooting team that Houston is long enough to compete with them and guard the 3-point line. And they're going to have to guard that 3-point line in this game. The 2-point defense for Houston, 5th in the country. Baylor, 126th. So you're having some metrics line up to where this is a close game. And, this is a Final Four game. The pressure is on Baylor. Everyone is expecting them to win. And you're getting very similar teams, very, similar metrics, and you're getting 5. The height ratio, Houston's taller than Baylor. That's a great metric for us. It wasn't in the USC game, and Philly broke that down perfectly, and they weren't strong enough, but they were tall enough. In this game, I think Houston matches up with them really well. The other thing that comes into play here towards the end is, things start to tighten up a little bit. Free throw wise, Baylor is 211th in the country and Houston is in the top 80. And that's a big discrepancy there. And I think when you're getting 5 and you have those metrics, I think it's gold. And I think the other portion that's gold here is I like a matchup. So I went and looked at the odds in the matchup of like Gonzaga to play Baylor, Gonzaga to play Houston, and obviously UCLA and vice versa. Gonzaga to play Houston here is like +210 or +215. And, getting more than 2-to-1 odds, obviously with Gonzaga heavily favored like they are. And then you're getting better odds here in this matchup versus the Houston money line straight in this game. I think it's a great play too as well. So I like Houston plus the 5, and I like the matchup of them with Gonzaga at +210, which is a better bet than just the straight money line. And I think it's a great play.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to rebounding and turnovers. And Baylor's the best team in the country in opponent turnovers per possession. So as long as Houston doesn't turn the ball over and they can stay within that rebounding battle, Baylor's going to have problems late on the foul line. I mean, they've had issues all year. So it's good. Yeah, I see it happen, man. I agree with you.
Rooster, you have a thought on the other side of the bracket?
I lean dog there. Not a big bet for me. After hearing Batman, I just upped my bet a little bit. But I'm actually playing around with my database, and Kentucky was 14 against Syracuse.
They were
1996.
Right. Yep.
And that was the year Allen Iverson was in. Ray Allen played, and Kentucky beat all those teams. I got to look at this. I can't guarantee they're in my top 5 now that I'm going back into the 90s, but still a great team.
And that was a Rick Pitino team, right? Wasn't it? Wasn't Pitino in 96?
Yes, it was.
I have to go back and look. I don't want to misquote on the show, but I thought Derek Anderson was on that team. Was Derek Anderson?
They were like 11 deep, man. They had
they were 11 deep. They came in as a 3 seed. It was a crazy year. I remember it. It was Georgetown was great that year. UMass was great. And the
Villanova's a good that year, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of those Lapis teams that always crapped the bed at the tournament time.
So I went to a game that year and watched Kentucky play, and I think they played UC that year away in a neutral site game. And the next day, Rick Pitino held a practice on Sunday morning because he didn't like the way they played. And one of my friends was working in the arena, and he got us in to sit kind of like in the mid-level and watch a Rick Pitino practice. And I will tell you this, I have never seen a basketball coach run a practice like Rick Pitino did. And when you're talking that he was talking about where he was this year and playing well in Iona, and he's going to build that school, Rick Pitino is such a great motivator, coach, space coach, position, half-court offense. They're going to be really good next year. And I will never forget watching that practice, and especially that year because they were so great on that run.
What was so great about the practice?
So they had –
struck you?
The thing that struck me the most was they had offensive players on one side and defensive players on the other side, but he made the defensive players play offense and the offensive players play defense to their weaknesses. Okay. So he would only hold possessions for the offensive players where they were playing defense versus vice versa, where the defensive players were only playing offense to improve their quality of game. It was the passing, the skill, the ball movement, where the position was, shoot the three, rebound, how they ran the floor, the spacing which they ran the floor. And if you watch all of those Kentucky teams, and even when he went to Louisville and the NBA and back at Iona, their spacing is so great. And you see that with Gonzaga. Watch them spread these teams out. And when they spread them out, that's why their passing is so great.
Yeah, honestly, from a Marcus perspective, even though they're playing a weaker conference, I don't remember point spreads being this high during the year or even in the tournament for, game after game after game. I mean, if you did the research, they have to be probably top 3 or top 5 when it comes to point spreads, biggest point spreads ever.
I'm going to do my homework, and next week I'll have my answer.
I want to ask.
We have a teaser for next week.
I want to ask the 8 Ball and Matt, I want to ask what you think about the current shape of the Boston Celtics and what's going to happen the rest of the year with the Boston Celtics and Brad Stevens, their coach.
The whole thing, the locker room, there's something serious over there in Boston. And you talked about it on Twitter. The team, they have serious issues, and it's going to be a serious problem. For a while I thought, they'd be able to recoup and they'd start to make a run. But this team, they just keep on getting in their own way, and they've done it in the past, and they continue to do it again. And it's hard to bet on a team like that because there's always something going wrong. Okay. And it's hard to, I bet them the other night, I bet them Boston Celtics. I know we talked about it on Twitter, like I said, and they failed me because that exact thing happened. And it's really a travesty because you have some talented players on there and you have a great coach, but there's some serious problems.
8 Ball.
Yeah, I can't pinpoint exactly what's going on with them, but they've obviously lost their identity on defense. They can't stop anything right now. I think they gave up 120 to the Pelicans last week.
That's unbelievable.
They wouldn't have done it last year at home.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a problem for them. Marcus Smart's come back, but it doesn't seem like it's helped them at all. So I don't know if Brad Stevens has lost the locker room or these guys just don't enjoy playing with each other anymore.
Dave Mason, go back to the Final Four. Is the odds are that it's going to be, as far as bet online, it's going to be Baylor and Gonzaga, with Gonzaga winning?
Yep, according to the odds, that's what we got. But who knows? We'll see Saturday night.
No kidding. That's the great thing about March Madness. Matt, do you agree with that?
I don't know. It's tough.
Or who do you have, brother? I just give an open question that way and go around the loop. Who do you have in the finals, and who do you have winning?
Batman made a great case for Houston. I'll tell you that. Okay, I might have to be on the island with Batman. I think it's Gonzaga, Houston, and I have a question for Gotham City. What do you think of that matchup, Batman?
I think it's interesting. And again, I'm going to be completely on an island here. I think that Houston gives them a better game than Baylor does from a matchup standpoint, because I think they play great 2-point defense. They're in the top 10 in the country in 2-point defense, and Gonzaga is a 2-point team first. And I think that it's a better matchup for them. I think that line will be 9.5, 10. And I think it's a great spot for Houston to play well and make it a great championship game, like most of them are.
I agree. I think Houston, Gonzaga, the whole tournament, they've played in their comfort zone. They haven't been taken out of their comfort zone. What Houston likes to do is they like to play rough. They like to play physical, and they like to get gritty and make you play in the mud. And I think it's they're going to have to make Gonzaga do that. And that's one thing Gonzaga hasn't done all tournament. They played
all year. I mean, that, my buddy and I, my coworker and I were talking about the other day, and wishful thinking, but we were saying, how's this team going to respond if it's a 2-point game with 2 minutes left? That's a big if. That's a huge if with this team. But if somebody locks down and play these guys tight, and it's a 1-possession game, how are they going to respond? Most likely great, but we just haven't seen that yet.
Exactly. We haven't seen it. It's a totally different.
They're not used to it.
Everyone's a bully until you get punched in the mouth. Like, you know what I mean? So it's going to be very interesting to see if that does happen.
West Virginia has been the only team to get gritty like that with them. They were very, very physical in that game. That's who Bob Huggins is. And that's the way Houston plays. I got to tell you, I don't think Baylor plays that way. I think that if Gonzaga and Baylor play, I think you'll see Gonzaga's superiority in the end win out that game. I think the Houston game's a better matchup in the championship game.
8-Ball,
I agree too.
8-Ball, what do you got in the final, and who you got winning?
I think it's going to be Baylor, but I agree with them. Houston will give them a better game than Baylor. I just think Baylor's shooting, they're disciplined. Houston, to me, they play a little hectic on offense. I think Baylor's going to take advantage of that. I don't think they're going to let them get on the offensive rebounding boards. I think the match is going to be Baylor and Zags, the two best teams, like the beginning of the year.
And Rooster?
I'm with Stevie. I mean, I like Houston to cover. I bet them, but I think Baylor's going to win out, and the Zags win easy. And we'll see. I hope Baylor gives them a game. I'm just looking for good games at this point, especially when I bet the dogs.
Billy Godfather?
Man, it's a tough one, but Baylor's defense is just so strong. Like I said, third and opponent turnover possession. If Houston has a bad shooting night, it's gonna be tough to keep up with Baylor. Houston plus the points, definitely. I like Gonzaga to win it all. We've talked about it for weeks. From the beginning of the year, I kept telling you guys it's Gonzaga and then everybody else. Gonzaga wins it. I think Baylor's going to get there.
Well, there you have it, guys. That is Follow the Action. There is our UFC. There is our baseball future, and it was a great one for John Layfield. That is me. And for Carmine Falcone, who is Gotham City, who is Batman. We don't care. We just love him, especially when he's calling the second-round knockouts, calling it like Muhammad Ali. For the Philly Godfather, best sports bettor alive. For our man, the Philly Rooster, the legend, who next week is going to have the top five. You heard it here. And, of course, his glass of wine. Matt Maltepe. So the college kids and the 8-Ball, the future of sports betting right there. They're in the middle of my screen. I don't know where they are on yours. I'm John Layfield. This is Follow the Action. Dave Mason for Bet Online. As always, thank you for joining us. Good luck this week on the Final Four.